I think I will always remember where I was when I heard the news that Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg had died. What a loss for our nation. What a loss for the millions of people, both women and men, for whom Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a symbol of hope and promise and justice. My family attended a gathering in downtown Greenville to support those trying to immigrate to America, to escape the violence and suffering in their home countries. At this gathering, I asked a little girl who was dressed as Ruth Bader Ginsburg if I could take a picture with her. The sight of this little girl made my heart soar. Because of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the world has changed. Doors are now open that many feared would be locked forever. Ruth Bader Ginsburg stood up for the maligned, the marginalized, and the oppressed. She used America's justice system to protect the civil liberties of women, people with disabilities, the LGBTQIA+ community, and people of color. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a superhero, a rock star, an American hero. Several of her colleagues on the court described her this way: she was a tireless and resolute champion of justice who spent her entire life fighting for the equality of all people. I can picture little Ruth as a child at her family's annual Passover Seder celebration, asking the question that Jewish children have been asking for centuries. Why is this night different from all other nights? I can picture her bright, eager eyes as she listened to the story of how her ancestors in the faith were enslaved in Egypt. Little Ruth would have known the Exodus story by heart long before she entered grade school. She could have recited how God, through God's servant Moses, freed her people from the bonds of slavery in Egypt, how God parted the waters of the Red Sea in order to lead the Hebrew people safely out of bondage. How her heart must have filled with joy and pride at God's act of salvation for her people. And then later, as a young teen, Ruth would have known the atrocities of the Holocaust. How her heart must have broken to see members of her family of faith suffer and die at the hands of injustice, hate, evil, and oppression. And then later in her life, Ruth certainly endured a very personal burden of oppression for being Jewish, for being a woman, and probably for being smarter, more clever, more motivated than many of her male counterparts. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was formed in the faith. All those years of weekly Shabbat meals and annual Seder celebrations must have planted a seed of justice in her heart. We owe a debt of gratitude to this bold, brave, brilliant woman who was a champion for justice. Ruth Bader Ginsburg's life work was fueled by her Jewish faith, and she inspires us to live out our Christian faith in ways that will change the world for good. She reminds us that our voices matter, that our silence supports the opposition, that when we share our truth, we empower others to share their truth, that when we speak out on behalf of the poor, the immigrant, the foreigner, the child, we speak for God. We speak for freedom, for hope, for honor, for all people. I hope and pray, trust and believe that God will continue to lift up brave, bold, brilliant leaders like Justice Bader Ginsburg, who will work for justice. In our baptismal liturgy, we promise to work for peace and justice in the world. Working for peace and justice is a crucial part of living out our faith. How are you using your faith, your voice, your power, your influence to speak up for the burdened and the oppressed? These days in which we live are full of fear, isolation, uncertainty, and ambiguity. Even in these times, God is calling us to work for justice and peace in the world, to protect those who need protection, to give voice to those who have been silenced, to stand in solidarity with all people. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death is a deep loss for many, but for her, all that can be said is this: well done, good and faithful servant. May her life inspire and empower us all to work for peace and justice in the world.